Yes, my father was in prison when in his 20s and very young. I was in prison when I almost 50s, in my 50s actually. And our time is 8 years apart. If I think back, the prisons as a crucial, intense experience for him made him from an artist become a poet, extremely good poet. And without his prison time, he would never achieve that. It's not possible. And for me, my prison also teach me a lot, and made me write this book about my memo. 1,000 years of joys and sorrows is a product of the prison.
A kínai Ai Weiweit, a világ egyik legismertebb képzőművészét és aktivistáját 2011-ben 81 napra bebörtönözték hazájában. A művész akkor döntött úgy, hogy meg kell írni fiának az élettörténetét.
Well, I start to really work with those memories after I have my son. And I do feel responsibility to let him know when he's growing up, to understand what happened in the past to his father and to his grandfather. He never met his grandfather, and he and me is about 52 years apart. So I don't think he would understand the world I have been experienced through. So I think if I have to leave him anything, it would be my personal writing about what happened. He may not be interested or may ever would even feel that is relevant, but not to leave that memory will be my biggest mistake.
Az eredmény az 1000 év öröm és bánat lett, amiben nem csak a saját, hanem író, festőművész apja történetét is elbeszélte. Ai Weiwei portugáliai házában adott interjút a jelenkor kiadónál megjelent memoárról, a börtön tapasztalatról, a New York-i évekről, az írásról, mint emlékezésről, otthonról és celláról, valamint az alkotássá váló életről.
I think life is like you jump into the middle of the ocean. To survive, you need vehicles, you need life jackets, or you're fortunate you can have a boat. So memory is that kind of vehicle to save our life. It's just life jacket or a boat. So memory is very important, and I have to hold on it, and to not to forget where I come from and what I've experienced. And those experiences almost can finish my life. And as long as I'm still have conscious and alive, I would hold on that.
Ai Weiwei édesapja, Ai Ching, Mao Zedong bizalmasa, a nép ünnepelt költője volt, majd a kínai kulturális forradalom alatt politikai nézetei miatt Kis-Szibériába száműzték, ahol borzalmas körülmények között élt családjával.
Well, to writing this book, I have to deal with historical facts. And all those facts are often, I realize, in the society like China has been changed, covered, or restored. So basically, nobody in the history in China can have a possibility to approach so-called truth. And no matter the factual truth or the internal understanding or interpretation about the truth, both are not existing. So to write a book relate to my family, and the most close to me, my father, I have to struggle to really to find out every sentence is factual. So it's not a fiction. It's really related to what really happened. But still, what I'm gathering is just a fragment. It's not possible.
Apját a 70-es években rehabilitálták. Ai Weiwei tovább tanult, majd művészcsoportot alapított társaival. Bátrak és radikálisak voltak. Sok szempontból fordulatot hozott életében, hogy a 80-as évek elejétől New Yorkban élt, tanult, dolgozott, megismerte Allen Ginsberget és Keith Haringet is. Apja betegsége miatt tért vissza Kínába 12 év után.
What I have learned through writing about my father, I realize writing is the most difficult but the most precious act, and it very often it will fix our possibilities to approach what happened in the past, and that is extremely difficult and is generally being ignored. I know thousands people or hundreds of thousands people has been going through the same history, but very few can sit down and write what really happened.
Az 1000 év öröm és bánat egy apa és egy fiú történetén keresztül mutatja be, miért kell megtalálni a nyelvet és a hangot az elnyomás ellenében.
Well, it's very different judgment. When my father decided to burn his books, I helped him, and that is a sense of protection, because the Red Guard can just kick the door open and come in to look at all the books to see any traces of anti-revolution, and they would ask endless questions about the photos of a nude body, or Rodin or Christian paintings, and it's really dangerous to have those books. And they even open all the personal diary and the letters from other friends to read line by line to find out, who you are associated with and why you are still have those books. So my father think the situation is getting worse each day, and we have to burn all those possible books. Books is the most dangerous thing in China at that time. Nobody have books, only the intellectuals who has the books. So we decide to burn all the books. That means since we're in better position not to answer those impossible questions.
Ai Weiwei története nem mesélhető el az apa története nélkül. Ai Ching földbirtokos családban született. A 40-es években Mao Zedong belső köreihez tartozott, később mégis politikai számkivetett lett. Jobboldali elhajlással vádolták, és kitelepítették a családjával együtt. Önvédelemből még a saját könyveit is elégette.
My family, when we grew up, we never had or never shared any intimate emotions to one another. But still, family is the last shelter for any individual. And I'm still grateful we are being somehow protected. Strangely, maybe we all been seeing us some kind of bad family or family of the people. That also maybe unified us as family. Well, it's a photo about when I was just over 1 year old, when he was being forced to go to a re-education camp in Northeast. So it's in the middle of the woods. He has to do all those physical works, forbidden to write. And my mom and me and my sister was with him. It's an extremely difficult situation. And the party, Communist Party, purposely set up this kind of condition to punish all those intellectuals. And just physically punish them. Well, the year my father was punished, that's the same year I was born. So when I become conscious, I only learned he's the biggest enemy of the people, party, or the nation. So he's the enemy, and that is a very, very big title anybody can get. And of course, I don't know, any of his crime or so-called crime. He's a writer. He's a poet. He's not very politically associated. But I only know he is being selected and punished. And that's all I know.
Ai Weiwei a saját életét, aktivizmusát nem választja szét művészetétől. Alkotásai mintha intenzív és provokatív sűrítései lennének a történeteknek. Ai Weiwei művészetének kulcseleme a kifejezés szabadsága. És amikor a személyes szabadsága veszélybe került, akkor a művészete segített abban, hogy felülemelkedjen a támadásokon. Ai Weiwei számára az ellenállás inspiráció, a művészet pedig a félelem ellenszere.
Well, I never think he is a role model, and he's a poet, but he's a role model for behaving as an individual who has independent thinking, and he has his love in beauty and in language. For my father's generation, and art for him is an escape from the injustice society or this fatalistic society or oppression from the imperial invasions. And the nation become so broken. So art for him is about beauty, about justice, about kindness. He studied in Paris and went back to China, trying to help China to build a new possibilities, with new possibilities, and to develop this, the culture scene there. But he was arrested and put in jail, and immediately, and in the jail, he became a poet because he cannot paint anymore. And but after years in jail, when he come out, he become very well known because his poetry used a fake name, published outside of jail, and nobody in China ever see or never read a poetry in modern language with such a powerful emotion and imaginations. So my father was naturally using poetry to express his feelings and emotions. In my case, I try to escape the communist propaganda. So I try to find some little corner I can develop my own search or language. And it takes a long time because I went to the United States and I went back to China, and almost it's not possible for me to use my art to support my living. So I did all kind of works and jobs and all those things. But fortunately, I still can work as an artist. I totally agree with him. Actually, yesterday on Twitter, somebody asked me, what is good work or not a good work. I think a good work has to have a soul. And with that soul, even the form created can be totally not so skillful, but still that is powerful. But if you just have forms with beautiful appearance, skillful expression, with no soul, that's a rubbish. I think after all, any individual's expression is telling a story about how this individual lived, also how he related to his time. In that sense, my work is really narrative about my life, my family life, and my time. For me, art is a way to experience about who I am and how do I give a definition about the situation, include myself. So each time when I consciously making something is a moment I want to answer why I'm doing that, and is that relevant, or, so that is most interesting part. It's just like a game. Every move, you have to be, you have to draw your own conclusion. There's no way other people can teach you on that.
Ai Weiwei és apja Ai Ching művészi fejlődésében fontos mérföldkő volt, amikor fiatalon mindketten elhagyták Kínát. Ai Ching a 20-as évek Párizsában képzőművészetet tanult. Ai Weiwei a 80-as évek legelején az Egyesült Államokba költözött. Búcsúzáskor azt ígérte az anyjának, 10 éven belül a fia lesz a második Picasso. Apa és fia idővel mindketten visszatértek Kínába, művészileg mindketten ott teljesedtek ki, és ott kezdődtek megpróbáltatásaik is.
Yes, for 3 generations of my family all went to a foreign nation. My father went to Paris in the end of 1920s. I went to United States, beginning of 1980s, and my son, who also left China when he was 4 years old. And this is unbelievable. We all have a strong emotional or cultural roots in China. And we have to be forced out or being pulled out by force to leave our land. This is a similarity. And the difference is the world is almost 100 years apart from my father's living to my son's living. And in this 100 years, the world have changed so much, and China has been changed so much. But once it never changed, China still under this empire, a state of empire. Is really a strong authoritarian state. And even economically, it changed so much. And the world also changed. And so the world become even more unpredictable about its future. Before I went to New York, I spent about 20 years in exile with my father. I spent about 20 years in exile with my father, and the life is almost unbearable. It's the most primitive life. Then I went to New York, which is a city of craziness, madness, and richest capitalism society. Of course, it's like start a new life. But at the same time, I feel I'm not easily to be adjusted to a material life, to a society, just seeking comfort and power, and to have this kind of capitalist struggle. So for me, it's also extremely difficult. But the good thing is I have an opportunity to expose myself to contemporary art or thinking, and to really use my own judgment to examine what happened in the current situation and in the past. So I spent about 12 years in New York, extremely poor also, like my father was in Paris, but spiritually quite stimulating, and that's the situation. I'm a game player, like poker, blackjack, or whatever. I love games, but it's not a great one. I'm not a good one. I can manage to survive. What's most satisfying about a game is it's really force you to put yourself in constant attention. You have to be really focused and has to be involved to enjoy. And because I have to prevent myself not to lose money, because I don't have much money, but at the same time, winning is almost impossible. So that gave me a sense of really a struggle. And that is, and there's always involved with management and discipline, and it's just like a life game, but has to be much more intense. So you get a quick result.
Szecsuánban 2008-ban egy földrengés következtében elhunyt 5000 gyerek. A kínai kormány titkosította a halottak nevét. Ai Weiwei kinyomozta, hogy hivatali visszaélés és korrupció is közrejátszott a tragédiában. Az ügyhöz kapcsolódva tanúskodni próbált. A rendőrség úgy megverte, hogy belső vérzés miatt agyműtétet hajtottak végre rajta. Házi őrizetben volt, majd vádemelés nélkül 81 napra bebörtönözték. A hatóságok szerint nemzetbiztonsági kockázatot jelentett. Ai Weiwei viszont úgy fogalmazott, elrabolta az állam.
I made this work to assemble my situation of the jail time, because after I got released, all my relatives, my mom, would like to ask what really happened in that 81 days. It's just secretly kidnapped by the state. So it's very hard for me to use language as I think. Then maybe I recreate the situation, because when I was sitting there every day, I look at the environment, I memorize it very well, every detail, because there's no other thing to do besides interrogation. So I made the situation exactly the same as my detention situation. And basically the detention, of course, they have to isolate you to examine you as some kind of animal or virus or disease under magnified glass. And that's their tactics. And somehow they feel they have a right to do so to any citizen. And till today, people still being disappeared under the same kind of situation. But for me, I think it's, or for anyone being detained, is most vulnerable time, because you're totally cut off from your environment. Nobody knows where you are, and you have no source of to gather information from outside. And also, you are being told you're under the total control of those ruthless people. And you do feel you're very vulnerable. Besides, you have a strong understanding of what I have doing is nothing wrong, is my rights. But still, when you say you have no situation to escape this kind of power, and they will be always there, and they can put you in any time as they want, and any length of time as they want, and they can create crimes you never really committed, then you feel vulnerable. Well, often people ask me, what is definition about home? I would say, I would imagine, because I never really had a real sense of home. But that is every Chinese would feel the same way. There's no private property, so there's nothing belong to your grandparents or your parents would inherit to you. So nothing, not even one object. And so everything belong to the country, belong to the party. And nobody have land. Even the farmers is leased land by states after they killed all the landlord. So under this kind of definition, when there's no private property, no privacy, actually there's no home where you can be forced to go to most remote area. Next day, the car was parking right in front of you to say, just move all your stuff and leave. And we don't have much stuff. We don't even have furniture. So I never had a home. Then I went to the United States. Of course, I, as a foreigner and as someone have no financial support, I cannot call the Western world as home. It's not possible. And mainly, the language you lost is probably the biggest lost, because that is, a really something valuable before everybody. We inherited our language, but once you move to a foreign nation, it doesn't work anymore. Your function as a handicapped, or or someone has a problem with the mind or brain or something, you're impossible to express your smallest intention. So those, of course, would affect anybody. Doesn't matter you're refugees or you're migrants, you already become homeless. Doesn't matter you can have still can have a comfort in somewhere else, for like my situation, but still I don't have a real sense of home in anywhere. Yes, I often laughing about civilians, and also I make some jokes or even about this. But I think even in today's modern society, if human rights or human dignity are not be recognized, surveillance is not a big problem. And we don't even have a privacy, because you don't have a private life. And so the communist or the regime use surveillance to surveil all the citizens only because they are so timid. They don't have legitimacy of control. Then they're scared. They have to find out who is gathering together, what they're talking about. They're so terribly scared. And I don't think I have any secret even. I told them I'm not the one who have secret, but you have a lot of secret. So I don't care they surveil me. So when they put surveillance cameras in front of my studio, I put the surveillance cameras right above my bed and my office table, and broadcast my daily activities, I would say, you know, you don't have to hide the box in my, you know, on my wall or in somewhere hiding place. You can just sit next to me, you know, while I'm working in my working desk. I give you a computer, sit next to me to see exactly who I talk about, you know, what I talk about, who I'm talking to. And they really scared about this idea because it's just not their practice. They want to secretly inspect you without you pay any attention. If you already paid attention, that means it's such a failure for them.
Az 1000 év öröm és bánat című memoárral egy évben, 2022-ben jelent meg Viski András regénye Kitelepítés címen, amelyben a román diktatúra szétszakít egy igazán nagy családot. A református lelkész apát bebörtönzik, a feleséget a 7 gyerekkel kitelepítik. Akármekkora kulturális és földrajzi távolság a két családtörténet között, a totális hatalmak hasonlóan bántak a családokkal. Viski András sikerről, undergroundról és belső konfliktusokról is kérdezte Ai Weiweit.
Hi, my name is András Viski. I'm a writer living in Romania. I read your book, 1000 Years of Joys and Sorrows, and I was struck by the way you describe how you lived together with your father in a dugout out of use. I was also deported in my childhood while my father was imprisoned, and my mother was taken with her 7 kids and put in a prison camp in a place in Romania very far from our home, which was taken away by the secret police. So in a place which was called by many people Little Siberia, because it was a gulag type of camp organized after Soviet models. At the beginning, we lived in the ground, in holes, which were dug by the first generation of prisoners in 1951. So when we got there, there were not places in barracks, so they put us in those holes. I remember very well things from there, the smell of the ground. In one hand, I'm interested in those underground experiences. I think that an artist, especially like you, remains always an underground figure. In a way, a subversive underground figure. So my question would be, how can you deal with the success?
My experience with in this underground dugout, very dark and very unthinkable condition with my father. I remember when US Army pulled out Saddam from Iraq, where he was hiding. When I see that image on the television, it's just like bring me back to my old time. We are living underground, and that as an insult to a poet to say you're below the human condition, you're under punishment. And fortunately, in that extreme condition, we call it a little Siberia. The winter is very long, totally frozen, and the summer is so hot, extremely unbearable sunshine, and the night is very long because we don't have light, electricity. Those things I think is the most important condition for us to survive, because under that kind of condition, everybody would unify to feel the same. Doesn't matter your enemy or your friend of the party, we're still under the same condition. The weather and the environment so dominate. And that is so powerful. And that is so important. I think I have this privilege. When I was very young, I experienced the nature can dominate our so-called environment of as a human being. We are so small and so almost not relevant. Even we went completely wrong directions. So that maybe, I don't know what would be directly affect my art, but definitely it gave me a very different perspective. And that also relates to the second question. When today I've been quite recognized, I have my voice almost everywhere, but still I cannot forget my father was the national poet. He was the voice for patriotic and defending the new nation. And when he was punished, the whole world, no one, almost no one, can help him or even to give one sentence to support him. So this kind of so-called public judgment or popularity, from my understanding, my very young, I'm fortunately have a clear understanding about that. And that don't mean anything to me. So-called fame or whatever, it doesn't mean anything to me. That gave me a confidence to defend what I have to defend, and give me a clear reason for myself to struggle to have my personal voice, which is much more precious than anything else. And anything else cannot even match one individual to have its own voice. Thank you.